Great men are great men because they have the imagination to seize a moment in their history and embody it and move a country from one condition to another. It's then left for the likes of you and me to debate the points of whether the country's been improved or has not improved. I could answer everything you've said by saying there's an extraordinary spirit in Cuba today. There's an atmosphere of hope that from many of the things I've heard...
Nazi Germany, too.
Well, we could get to that, too, if we had time. Sometimes a country can feel great hope and not be moving in a good direction, be moving in a hideous direction. Sometimes a country can be moving in a hideous direction and feel great hope because the entire world is upset.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, the world is heading toward an abyss.
I think
and any orgy of killing releases releases positive emotions because people feel animal again and alive, whereas modern technological society is destroying them. But all I'm getting is these are enormous points. But the one point I do want to make is that Castro had the ability to fight the 20th century, and that's why I admire him profoundly. When he landed in Cuba to take to try to take Cuba away from Batista, he landed with 80 men. 68 of them were killed in the first couple of days. They were without food for 5 days, wandering at night. At a certain point on the fifth day, he turned to the other people and he said, "The days of the dictatorship are numbered." And the man who reported this said, "I thought our leader was mad." Well, of course, he was mad unless he succeeded. You see, many a man has said something like that on such an occasion. He succeeded, which meant that he had, the man has a greatness which nobody on the right wing has ever been willing to allow him. By the same token, de Gaulle has a greatness. De Gaulle had the ability to see that the only way France was going to be able to...
Do you know why I disagree with you? For this very reason, that expeditions of this kind are not uncommon in this century or in others. And I join with you in admiring the quality of the stubborn idealism of the people who join in these expeditions. But in point of fact, it's not, as a general rule, they who make them successful. It's historical and accidental events that decide whether or not Castro is going to descend from the Sierra Maestra. For instance, if it had been that a particular sharpshooter had actually sighted Castro.
They didn't.
But the fact that it was pure accident.
I don't believe it was pure accident.
It was an accident that John Kennedy was shot and Franklin Delano Roosevelt wasn't by the assassin who killed Cermak instead.
Well, of course we get into that.
This does make Oswald a man of history in the sense in which you're talking about.
Well, then we don't know that Oswald did the killing altogether, do we?
I do.
Well, see, I don't. Every time you speak or I speak, we open a can of beans.
Yeah.
The floor is littered with beans by now.
Would you mind answering this gentleman's question? Because excuse me.
Yes.
Mr. Mailer, I'd just like to know what happened. When I read your work, The Armies of the Night, when it was published in Harper's, you were so much more aggressive. I mean, you said what you wanted, and, that was it. Here, I seem to think that you're circling around. You're going around everything.
And fractious.
Fractious? What is fractious?
And fractious. That's what Dwight McDonald said about it.
I can only say that I was doing my best and speaking as quickly as I could, trying to get as much in as I could. If you think I didn't do well, I'm dashed. I hope there are millions who disagree with you.
Yes.
Mr. Mailer, you were talking before. This on? You were talking before about your belief in a soul and your belief in losing and gaining a soul. Yet you also have this feeling, this existential philosophy which you have. And the two seem very contradictory. The belief in a soul and a God, I would believe, and an existentialism, which would be atheistic. They seem to contradict.
No.
Yeah. Kierkegaard was an existentialist.
Sartre is the leading existential atheist, but I'm not an atheist at all. There's nothing about existentialism that lends itself to atheism. In fact, it's rather difficult philosophically to be an existentialist and an atheist, because the first notion of existentialism is that the very feel of the existence that surrounds you at any given moment has enormous meaning. I mean, there's a particularly very crude way of putting it, but
it has meaning to you, not to a higher
well, but
thing.
what I'm getting at is, from that point, it's easier to move philosophically to the idea of at least a God, and probably a God and a devil, and of forces about one, rather than to believe just that one's own concrete body, and there's no meaning beyond oneself.
Thank you.
And there was one more question, I think. Yes, sir. You need the mic. Hand it back with you.
Mr. Mailer, you spoke earlier at the same time you were talking about Castro, about de Gaulle, and called him something to the effect of the most remarkable demi-conservative in the world today. Do you find that, are you basing that judgment upon the way he's sustained his regime in the context of the events of the past few days? And if so, how do you rationalize that with the fact that his regime even allowed this a general strike which encompassed 10 million people to take place within his country?
Well, a man can, I can say a man is the greatest I think is the greatest representative of his political philosophy. That doesn't mean he's going to be completely successful. In fact, he may even create a disaster eventually. Castro could fall, de Gaulle could fall. What I admire de Gaulle for is I think at a certain point he had a profound comprehension of the French character, if you will. And I think what he felt was that France was going to perish from within. It was just going to dissipate itself if it tried to enter the European community of nations as one other nation. In other words, it would end up being the least important nation. And what he saw was that France had to become the power again in Europe, because Frenchmen just couldn't take themselves seriously unless they were the most important, at least the most important nation in Europe. And so he set out to do that, and he made a whole series of very bold strokes, which also consisted of breaking up a great many alliances with America and England, which was a very risky thing for him to do. In other words, he was a bold man. He was very bold. He was bold the way Churchill was bold, took bold steps. The mark of a good conservative to me always is that they're bold.
Well, come on. Why is that the mark of a good conservative?
Well, because conservatism, since it does hold to so many fixed positions, you see, is always in danger of dying of not obesity, but that thing where you have too much water and edema. I think edema is the natural disease of the conservative. And so there's a certain boldness. And in fact, the conservative modes of life, after all, most conservatives are horse jumpers.
Well, in that parallel sense, what would be the mark of a good liberal?
There are times when I say there's no such thing as a good liberal.
Stolidity?
I can't talk about liberals because I think they're the agents of the technological society all over the world.
Good night. Thank you.